Sri Gurubhyo Namaha children, in the first part 0 to infinity by Ramanujam, we are learning about Ramanujam, and it has been, he was a great mathematician, and we were learning about him, where he was born and what is the efficiency of him in the previous lesson. And we found that he was teaching his seniors and he was learning the book which is not belong to him. It is of senior students of the college book trigonometry. In his 13th year, he was just making and learning from that and doing a research in that. So later of life we will see what he was doing. The most significant turn came 2 years later when one of his senior friends showed him synonyms of elementary result in pure applied mathematics by George Scrooge Carr. For a boy of 15, the title itself must be frightening, but Ramanujam was delighted. He took the book home and began to work on the problems given in it. This book triggered the mathematical genius in him. So here the most significant turn came 2 years later. So when he was 13, he was learning trigonometry and doing research, and after 2 years, that is when he was 15 years old, the most significant turn came 2 years later when one of his senior friends showed him synopsis of elementary result in pure applied mathematics by George Scrooge Carr. So when his senior friends was asking doubt in synopsis of elementary results, so it was a book purely applied mathematics by George Scrooge Carr. For a boy of 15, the title itself must be frightened. By seeing the title itself, 15 years old boy will be frightened. But Ramanujam was delighted. He felt very happy in just doing it. And he took the book home and began to work. So he took the book home and began to work on the problems given in it. This book triggered him, and the mathematical genius in him was proved by others. So he was just taking the book with the interest, and this book triggered the mathematical genius in him. So he was just going through the book and working out and doing some research. This helped him, and that proved him that he was a mathematical genius in him. Okay children, we will go for the next. Mathematical ideas began to come in such a flood to his mind that he was not able to write all of them down. He used to do problems on loose sheets of paper or on a slate and jot the result down in notebooks. Before he went abroad, he had filled 3 notebooks which later became famous as Ramanujam's frayed notebooks. So mathematical ideas began to come in such a flood to his mind that he was not able to write all of them down. So here he was not able to write all of them. So mathematical ideas begin to come in such a flood. So it will be coming in his mind like a flood that he was not able to write all of them down. So he was not able to write all of them. He used to do problems on loose sheets. So he will be getting a loose sheet and he will be just writing all the notes in the loose sheet, what all the ideas he is getting, he will be just writing, and of papers or on a slate, and jot the result. He will be work it out with the thing, and the result will be noted down in his notebooks. So like that, before he went abroad, he had filled 3 notebooks. Before he was going to abroad, he filled 3 notebooks, and which later became famous as, later it became a famous book or a notebook as Ramanujam's frayed notebook. So those 3 notebooks were called as Ramanujam's frayed notebooks. It's very clear, children? Okay. And what is this next nature? We are going to see that although Ramanujam secured a first class in mathematics in the matriculation examination and was awarded the Subramaniam scholarship, he failed twice in the first year arts examination in college, as he neglected other subjects such as history, English and psychology. This disappointed his father when he found the boy always scribbling numbers and not doing much else. He thought Ramanujam had gone mad. So it's clear, children, although Ramanujam secured a first mark in maths, but he was a failure in other art subjects like English, history and psychology. So this disappointed his father, and his father thought he had always scribbling something in the paper and note. So Ramanujam gone mad. His father thought that Ramanujam had gone mad. So he thought Ramanujam had gone mad. Okay. Ramanujam began to look for a job. He had to find money not only for food. So here he need of money. So he had to find a job for him. So he was searching a job for him. Ramanujam began to look for a job. He had to find money not only for food, but also for his writing papers. For papers as well to do his calculations, he needed about 2000 sheets of paper every month. Ramanujam started using even scrap of paper he found lying on the streets. Sometimes he used a red pen to write over what was written in blue ink on the piece of paper he had picked up. So here he was very poor and nobody is there to afford papers, and a month he needed 2000 papers to jot out all the answers and results or maths which his mind is telling. So he needed papers, and it was not probably given by others. So he wanted job to earn for not only for food, also for this paper. So he needed about 2000 sheets of paper every month, and Ramanujam started using even the scraps of paper he found lying on the street. And he just picked that, and it is already written in blue pen. He started writing in a red pen, and like that he was just finding struggles to get a paper. So he used even the sheets which he got down from the street, and he was just calculating the sums in that with the other color of ink pen. Unkept and uncouth, he would visit offices showing everyone his frayed notebook and telling them that he knew mathematics and could do a clerical job, but no one could understand what was written in the notebooks, and his applications for jobs were turned down. So what had happened? He was just unkempt and uncouth. Unkempt means he had not combed his hair properly, he had not dressed him properly, and unkempt and uncouth, he could visit offices. He'll be going to office by office, and he'll be just asking for a job there, showing everyone his frayed notebooks and telling them that he know maths and he can work it out on maths, and he want a job, do a clerical job. But no one could understand what was written in the notebook, and his application for job was rejected. So he didn't get a job anywhere when he was telling that he know maths and he can do a clerical job, and he was asking for that, and nobody is ready to accept and give him a job. Luckily for him, he at last found someone who was impressed by his notebooks. He was the director of Madras Port Trust, Francis Spring, and he gave Ramanujam a clerical job on a monthly salary of ₹25. So here, luckily for him, he at the last found someone who was impressed by his notebook. So he was turning and seeing, and he was impressed by his notebook. He was the director of Madras Port Trust. His name is Francis Spring, and he gave Ramanujam a clerical job on a monthly salary of ₹25. Later, some teachers and educationists interested in mathematics initiated a move to provide Ramanujam with a research fellowship. So later, some teachers and educationists interested in mathematics initiated a move to provide Ramanujam with a research fellowship. So the teachers and educationists, they interested person in mathematics, they just given him a research fellowship for him. On May 1st, 1913, the University of Madras granted him a fellowship of ₹75 a month, though he had no qualifying degree. So actually he had not qualified his degree because he had failed in hard subjects like English, history and psychology. So he had not completed his degree, and I know that if you not completed your degree, you will not have a value. Even then, by seeing his mathematical notebook and the intelligence in his mathematics made him to get 75 month fellowship a month, though he was not qualified a degree. Even he is not qualified. If he was qualified, he would have got more amount, but as he had not qualified, the fellowship was given only 75 rupees a month for him. A few months earlier, Ramanujam had sent a letter to the great mathematician G.H. Hardy of Cambridge University, in which he set out 120 theorems and formulae. Among them was what is known as the Raymond series, a topic. So a few months earlier, he had written a letter to Cambridge University and to G.H. Hardy, who is a mathematician, and he had sent a letter in which he set out 120 theorems and formula. So he wrote 120 theorems and formulas he sent to G.H. Hardy to the Cambridge University, and among them was what is known as Raymond series. Among that was a Raymond series was a topic in the definite integral of calculus, but Ramanujam was ignorant of the work of German mathematician George F. Raymond, who had earlier arrived at the series. A rare achievement also included was Ramanujam's conjecture about the kind of equation called modular. Perry Delakin subsequently proved this conjecture to be correct. So what had happened, he sent his theorems and series, Raymond series, to Hardy to the Cambridge University, and when he found that in the definite integral of calculus, but Ramanujam was ignorant of the work, so he was not known what is happening all over the world. Already that series had been done by George F. Raymond, who had earlier arrived at the series, a rare achievement. So already he had done, and it was also announced as a rare achievement, and also included was Ramanujam's conjecture. So in that Ramanujam conjecture was also there about the kind of equation called modular. That equation is called as modular, and Perry Delakin subsequently proved this conjecture to be correct. So the person proved, Perry Delakin subsequently proved this conjunction was correct, and because of that, it did not take long for Hardy and his colleagues J.E. Littlewood to realize that they had discovered a rare mathematical genius. They made arrangement for Ramanujam's passage and stay at Cambridge University. On March 17, 1914, he sailed for Britain. So in Cambridge University, G.H. Hardy made, and J.E. Littlewood understood he was really a genius, mathematical genius, and they made arrangement for Ramanujam to go and stay in Cambridge in the year. On March 17, 1914, he sailed for Britain. So he sailed for Britain to stay in Cambridge University. So which year? On March 17, 1914, he sailed for Britain. So it is very clear, children. Ramanujam found himself estranged at Cambridge. The cold was hard to bear, and being a vegetarian, he had to cook his own food. However, he continued his research in mathematics with determination. In the company of Hardy and Littlewood, he could forget much of hardship he had to endure. So Ramanujam found himself a stranger. He found himself a stranger at Cambridge. He found himself a stranger in Cambridge University. The cold was hard to bear, and being a vegetarian, so he was belonged to a vegetarian, and he felt that the climate was very cool there. He was not able to bear it. However, he continued his research in mathematics. He continued his research in mathematics with a determination. So, with the determination he done his research. In the company of Hardy and Littlewood, he would forget much of his hardship he had to endure. So, he had to undergo so many hardship, but the company of Hardy and Littlewood made him to feel happy and comfortable there. Actually, he was undergoing a hardship, but their friendship and their relationship made him to accept and bear those things. In Ramanujam, Hardy found an unsystematic mathematician similar to one who knows the Pythagoras theorem but does not know what a concurrent triangle means. Several discrepancy in his research could be attributed to his lack of formal education. Ramanujam played with numbers as a child. So, here Ramanujam faced another difficulty. He was not basically from good foundation, and when they were just doing research, so unsystematic mathematician similar to one who knows the Pythagoras theorem but does not know what a congruent triangle means. So, here those two are related. They will be knowing Pythagoras theorem, but they will not know congruent triangle means. So, here their study is different, and here he studied something, and that made a little problem for him there. Several discrepancy in his research would be attributed to his lack of formal education. So, he was lack of formal education that troubled him little there. Ramanujam played with numbers as a child would play with a toy. So, how a child plays with a toy, like that Ramanujam play with the arithmetic, with the numbers. It was sheer genius that led him to mathematical truths. The task of proving them so important in science he left to lesser mortals. So, with how a child plays with a toy, like that he will be playing with numbers, and it was sheer genius that led him to mathematical truths. The task of proving them so important in science he left to lesser mortals. So, he just proved himself. The task of proving them so important in science, he left it to lesser mortals. Ramanujam was elected Fellow of the Royal Society on February 28, 1918. He was the youngest Indian to receive this distinguished fellowship. In October that year, he became the first Indian to be elected Fellow of Trinity College, Cambridge. His achievements at Cambridge included the R.D. Ramanujam Littlewood circle method in number theory, Raghur Ramanujam's identity in partition of integers, a long list of highest composite numbers, besides work on the number theory and the algebra of inequality in algebra. So, here Ramanujam was elected in Fellow of Royal Society on February 28, 1918. So, he was been elected as a Fellow of the Royal Society on February 28, 1918. He was the youngest Indian to receive this distinguished fellowship. So, he was the youngest Indian to receive this distinguished fellowship. In October that year, the same year, October month, he became the first Indian to be elected Fellow of Trinity College. So, Trinity College also elected as a Fellow of Trinity College, Cambridge in the month of October in the year 1918. His achievement at Cambridge included, Hardy, Ramanujam, Littlewood. So, those three joined together and worked out some maths, and that was a specialization of him with them in the year, and he had been elected as a Fellow of Trinity. Circle method in number theory. So, he was specialized in circle method in number theory. In the number theory, circle method he taught. And Raghur Ramanujam, so again Raghur Ramanujam identity in partition of integers. So in integers, partition of integers, he got the same with Raga Ramanujam. A long list of highest composite number. He had done a long list of highest composite number, and besides work on the number theory. So he worked on number theory and the algebra of inequalities. So he done again in inequalities in algebra, and in algebra his work on continued fractions is considered to be equal in importance to that of a great mathematician like Leonard, Euler and Jacobi. So here in algebra, first they were just doing Ramanujam, Littlewood and Hardy together, they were doing circle method in number theory. They were doing circle method in number theory, and Raga Ramanujam identity in partition of integers, you know, integers number line, and in that partition Raga and Ramanujam together they have done thing, and a long list of highest composite number had made by him. And besides work on number theory and the algebra of inequalities, in algebra his work on continued fractions. So he worked on continuous fractions is considered to be equal in importance to that of great mathematician like Leonard, Euler and Jacobi. So the person was great in mathematician, importance that of a great mathematician like Leonard. So Leonard was a great mathematician, Euler and Jacobi was there in fraction. So here he also had been considered one among them and as an important person. Well, Ramanujam continued his research work. Tuberculosis, then an incurable disease, was devouring him. So when he was working in that place, it was very chill and cold, and it was not comfortable. As a vegetarian, he had to cook his own food and eat, and his health also was not good at that time. So while Ramanujam continued his research work, tuberculosis, then an incurable disease, was devouring him. So here he got tuberculosis, an incurable disease was devouring him. So now tuberculosis is nothing but if we take 3 months medicines, we will be cured. But in olden days it was very deadly disease, if an incurable disease, and was devouring him. Ramanujam was sent back to India. So that time he was sent back to India, and when he disembarked, his friends found him pale, exhausted and emaciated. To forget the agonizing pain, he continued to play with numbers even on his deathbed. So he was just continuing his numbers, exhausted and emaciated. To forget the agonizing pain, he continued to play with numbers even on his deathbed. Besides being a mathematician, Ramanujam was an astrologer of repute and a good speaker. He used to give lectures on subjects like God, zero and infinity. So here you can understand that he worked in the Cambridge University and they given fellowship, and when he became sick, they sent him to India, and he was just coming to India, returning to India, and when he was coming, Ramanujam was sent back to India, and when he disembarked, his friends found him pale and agonizing. So he was just emaciated, and to forget the agonizing pain, he was undergoing agonizing pain, and he continued to play with numbers even on his deathbed. So he was playing with the numbers even on his deathbed. Besides being a mathematician, Ramanujam was an astrologer of a repute and a good speaker. So he was astrologer as well as a good speaker. He used to give lectures on subjects like God, zero and infinity. So here you know that he was a great person in Cambridge, but because of his sickness he came to India, and with agonizing pain, when he was in bedridden, he was playing with mathematician, and with a number even on his deathbed. Besides being a mathematician, Ramanujam was an astrologer of repute and he was a good speaker. He used to give lectures on subjects like God, zero and infinity. So he was a good speaker and gave speech on God, zero and infinity. So you know that Ramanujam was a great person. He had proved himself a great mathematician. Even formal education he was not having, and he was not a qualified degree holder. Even then he went to abroad with so many hardship. He worked out there, and he just with all thing he had researched, and he had done so many great things. Then he was just diseased and tuberculosis attacked him, and he came to India with a sickness, with a pain. At the last bedridden time also he was working with Max, and he is a good speaker and astrologer, and that made him to live a best life, and at last he died. So here this shows that how a great mathematician he will be. So even children, I hope that you also can be a great person if you are doing hard work, and you learned that moral from this lesson. And don't get fear for Max or any subject. Your hard work will support you and you will be getting a good mark. We will end the lesson and we will meet you in the next class with the next lesson, children.